Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sham Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. We're reading from Canto 3, chapter 16, text 26. I'm coming at the heels of a beautiful class by His Grace Jagadananda Prabhu. I was fortunate to hear it, and I think the mood in which he expressed his realizations, as well as how he presented various points, was powerful. For those who missed it yesterday, I think it'd be nice to hear the class from yesterday. It reminded me a lot of hearing from my own spiritual master. It was very beautiful. So today we're going to cover text 26. It's a single verse. There's a lot to it. So we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Hopefully you can see it.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. So, Krishna speaking. I'll just give a quick context before Krishna starts to speak here. Actually, this is only one verse in response to the four Kumaras. And then it continues on, the story continues on with the four Kumaras leaving, paying their obeisances to the Lord and then leaving. But what happens prior to this is that the four Kumaras see the Lord, who comes in this very beautiful form in front of them after they had cursed Jay and Vijay in the Vaikuntha realm. And then they offered glorification to the Lord. The Lord responds back and apologizes for his servants not allowing them to come through, and then therefore they felt compelled to curse them. And then the Lord started to describe the glories of the Brahmanas and how it's so important to recognize the qualities of the Brahmanas and how we should not be very careful in dealing with them. And in the conversation that the Lord was sharing his appreciation for Brahmanas and especially devotees, the sages started to get confused. Was the Lord speaking about um, them as the Brahmanas, or was the Lord speaking about Jay and Vijay as the devotees? So they didn't know whether Krishna was favoring Jay and Vijay and actually chastising the four Kumaras, or was he supporting the four Kumaras and justifying the curse that they had applied to Jay and Vijay? So they got confused, and in the previous verse, they said, um, whatever punishment you wish to award these two innocent persons, or also to us. So, because they didn't know who the Lord was trying to favor with all of his statements. They said, we shall accept whatever you want to do without duplicity. And then they said, we understand we have cursed two faultless persons. So they were backtracking from their curse. They were feeling somewhat embarrassed because of how the Lord was glorifying his devotees. And so now the Lord responds to them, the four Kumaras who are in this appreciating the Lord's appreciation of the devotees and the Brahmanas, but also in this bewildered state of mind. So Krishna soothes their heart. And how Krishna soothes their heart is in this verse. So let's start. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Etau Suretaragatim Pratipadya Sadhya Samrambha Sambrita Samadhyanubadha Yogao Bhuya Sakashamupayasya Ashu Yovaha Shapo Mayeva Nimita Tadaveta Vipra. So this beautiful verse, I'll say the translation. The Lord replied, O Brahmanas, know that the punishment you inflicted on them was originally ordained by me, and therefore they will fall to a birth in a demoniac family. But they will be firmly united with me in thought through mental concentration, intensified by anger, and they will return to my presence shortly. Purport by Prabhupada. The Lord stated that the punishment inflicted by the sages upon the doorkeepers, Jay and Vijay, look at this, was conceived by the Lord himself. Without the Lord's sanction, nothing can happen. It is to be understood that there was a plan in the cursing of the Lord's devotees in Vaikuntha. And his plan is explained by many stalwart authorities. The Lord sometimes desires to fight. The fighting spirit also exists in the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how could fighting be manifested at all? Because the Lord is the source of everything, anger and fighting are also inherent in his personality. When he desires to fight with someone, he has to find an enemy. But in the Vaikuntha world, there's no enemy, because everyone is engaged fully in his service. Therefore, he sometimes comes to the material world as an incarnation in order to manifest his fighting spirit. In Bhagavad Gita 4.8, also it is said that the Lord appears just to give protection to the devotees and to annihilate the non-devotees. The non-devotees are found in the material world, not in the spiritual world. Therefore, when the Lord wants to fight, he has to come to this world. But who will fight with the Supreme Lord? No one is able to fight with him. Therefore, because the Lord's pastimes in the material world are always performed with his associates, not with others, he has to find some devotee who will play the part of an enemy. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord said to Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, both you and I have appeared many, many times in this material world, but you have forgotten, whereas I remember. Thus, Jay and Vijay were selected by the Lord to fight with him in the material world. And that was the reason the sages came to see him, and accidentally the doorkeepers were cursed. Mystery revealed. It was the Lord's desire to send them to the material world, not perpetually, but for some time. Therefore, just as on a theatrical stage, someone takes part of an enemy to the proprietor of the stage, although the play is for a short time and there no permanent enmity between the servant and the proprietor, so the Sura Janas, or the devotees, were cursed by the sages to go to the Asura Jana, or the atheistic families. That a devotee should come into an atheistic family is surprising, but it is simply a show. After finishing their mock fighting, both the devotee and the Lord are again associated in the spiritual planets. That is very explicitly explained here. The conclusion is that no one falls from the spiritual world or the Vaikuntha planet, for it is the eternal abode. This is a controversial topic in our ISKCON movement. But sometimes, as the Lord desires, devotees come to this material world as preachers or as atheists. In each case, we must understand there is a plan of the Lord. Lord Buddha, for example, was an incarnation, yet he preached atheism, quote, "There is no God," unquote. But actually, there was a plan behind this, as explained in the Bhagavatam. Back to the verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Etau Suretar Gatim Pratipadya Sadhya Samrambha Sambrita Samadhya Nubadha Yogau Bhuya Sakasham Upayasyat Ashu Yovaha Shapo Mayeva Nimita Tadaveta Vipra. Beautiful. The Lord replied, O Brahmanas, know that the punishment you afflicted on them was originally ordained by me, and therefore they will fall to a birth in the demoniac family. But they will be firmly united with me in thought through mental concentration, intensified by anger, and they will return to my presence shortly. So I'm going to spend some time with the verse. We'll look at how Krishna is expressing himself, or the Lord of Vaikuntha is expressing himself here in response to the four Kumaras being in a confused state of mind, feeling love for the Lord, feeling bewilderment, not knowing is the Lord on their side, on Jan Vijay's side, on both. They're not clear. So the Lord says, Etau, these two, Suretara Gatim, Sura Itara. Sura is demigods or persons of godly nature. Sura and Asura. Asura is demons. Itara means against or indirectly. So some of you may know the first verse of the Bhagavatam, the very first verse of the Bhagavatam. It says, Janmadyasya yatonvayaditarata charteshu bhigyaswarat. Anvayad means directly, and itara means indirectly. So Krishna is directly abhigya, knowledgeable and cognizant of his entire creation. But he's also indirectly, itarata, of his entire creation. He's indirectly conscious and directly conscious because of the way he manifests in the material world. So when the word here, suretara, is used, it means it's against or indirect to the suras, which is asura. So it's the demoniac life or demoniac family. So etau suretara gatim, the goal or the destination of being in the family of asuras. These two guys, Jai and Vijay, are going to obtain. Pratipadya means to obtain. Sadhya means very soon. Very soon they're going to obtain the family or the destination of the demons. Okay, that's the first line. Next, however, so he's making this point, however, these guys, even though they're going to enter into um, the womb of a demoniac family or the Asura family, yoga. By the way, when we read Sanskrit, this is Hridayananda Maharaj discussed. A lot of times it's easier to read backwards to translate it to English. So, yoga meaning anubhaddha yoga. Anubhaddha means they'll be very tightly bound in yoga, in complete connection with me. How? Samrambha Sambhrita Samadhi. This is beautiful alliteration. Alliteration is where you have consistent consonants in poetry. So you have sa, and sa, and therefore this is known as alliteration. Samrambha, anger. Sambhrita, intensified anger. Samadhi, concentration of intensified anger. So Krishna is saying that while these persons are going to be distant from being very close, generally very close to me as doorkeepers, they will still be connected with me. Not just loosely connected, anubhaddha, tightly connected with me. But that connection is intensified anger in deep meditation, of intensified anger with me. So he's giving some sense of solace to the four Kumaras that your curse is going to act out, but they'll still be connected with me. And he's also simultaneously telling the two doorkeepers who are standing right there, Jay and Vijay, that don't worry. Later he explicitly tells them, don't worry, you will be connected with me. The third line. Bhuya Sakasham. So Bhuya, once again, Sakasham is come near. So in this case, it means come to Krishna's presence. So again, they're going to come near Krishna. Upayasyata. They will return. Ashu. This is really interesting. Ashu means quickly or shortly. So he's telling the four Kumaras that very soon these two, Etau, will return back to me. Quickly. I mean, the word quickly is interesting. Why? Because they went through 2 lives as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, and those were really long lives in the Satyuga's time frame. And then they became Kumbhakaran and Ravana in the Treta Yuga, which was also a very long life. And then they became Shishupal and Dantavakra in the Dwapar Yuga, which was even longer than Kali Yuga lifetime. And then they went back. So it's like a lot of time passed. But from the spiritual perspective, and this is where we cross time dimensions. You have timelessness in Vaikuntha, and you have a world of time in the world that we live in, material world. And as you cross these 2 dimensions of timelessness and a world bound by time, how time is perceived in the material world by those in the spiritual world is mystical, enigmatic. And so the Lord is saying they're going to come back very soon. So sometimes it is asked, when we do return to the spiritual world, does it feel like we were there for a very long time? And the answer that Prabhupada gave in one time is that it feels like a moment that we had left Krishna's association and that we made a huge blunder, but we'll never do it again. Anyway, so then the last line, Shapo Mayeva. This curse, Shapaha, Maya Eva, it was by me only. Maya Eva, it was by me only. Nimittas, like we hear the word nimittani, or to be an instrument. is to be a nimitta. So he says, I was the instrument of the sharper through you guys. I was the one who created, make it happen. And that you should know, tadaveta, please know, O Brahmanas, Vipra, please know that this curse was instrumented by me through you. It was ordained by me or instrumented by me through you. So the Lord reveals this. And he's very enigmatic. Now, why did he do this? Like, the question that Prabhupada spends a lot of time answering in the purport, why did the Lord take the effort to curse these two dear servants of him, really dear servants, Jaya and Vijay? So much service. And they're so famous. There's more statues of Jaya and Vijay all over the world in all the temples than any other deity. Right? Because all the Vishnu temples, you'll have Jaya and Vijay outside. So Narayan temples, Krishna temples, Rama temples, whatever temple you go, there's Jaya and Vijay outside. They're so famous. They're so amazingly dedicated to the Lord. Now, why in the world would the Lord do this to them? The answer is given in the purport. And I will, Vishwanath Chakri Thakur goes one step even further. So Prabhupada in the purport explains that the Lord has this tendency to fight. Anger, being angry and wanting to fight, that tendency is within the Lord. Why would we have that tendency? Because it comes from the Lord. This is not a sanction and a, you could say, permission to act in a fighting mood. It's not at all. But it's to say that if we have anger and if we tend to fight, it is ultimately coming, that tendency ultimately is coming from the Lord. And it is okay sometimes to get irritated. It is natural to get irritated and want to fight because it's coming from the Lord. Just the other day, I was having an exchange with a close family member, and the close family member was just irritated with me and kept on expressing irritation. And I was amused because I was remembering this verse, thinking how we get stuck sometimes in a space of irritation, and it's okay. We just allow that irritation to pass by, and then the relationship can be restored. Now, the Lord wanted to exhibit that anger and wanted to fight. And so he chose, Prabhupada explains, he chose Jai and Vijay to do that. And he fought really hard with Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. It was an intense fight, especially with Hiranyaksha. And then with Ravana, it was also an intense fight. And Kumbhakarna, very intense. Of course, Shishupal and Dantavakra with Krishna was a lot less intense. But the first two, very intense. So Krishna got a pretty good workout. Of course, he's Krishna, so he once he decided he wanted to kill them, he killed them. Vishwanath Chakri Thakur explains that why did he pick Jai and Vijay? Because Jai and Vijay actually, because they were so close to the Lord and they knew his heart, they're the ones who expressed first, the Lord, please Lord, we know that this is your desire that you cannot manifest in the spiritual world. Please allow us to serve you in this way. This is one of the rasas that one can experience with the Lord, and that rasa is the chivalry rasa. There's 5 primary rasas, or 5 primary kinds of relationship one can have with Krishna. Shanta, neutrality; dasya, servitude; sakhya, friendship; vatsalya, parenthood; and conjugal or madhurya. These 2 devotees, Jai and Vijay, are in the dasya rasa, in the servitude mood. And one of the, as was Bhishma Dev, and one of the secondary features, there's 7 secondary rasas one can have with the Lord. One of them is the chivalry rasa. Just as Bhishma Dev had, these 2 devotees temporarily manifested the chivalry rasa with Krishna. And so they said, please allow us to be in that fighting relationship with you so that it satisfies you. Let us fight with you so that you become happy. The other reason that comes a little later in the Bhagavatam is Krishna explains to these 2, Jai and Vijay, that to pacify Lakshmi Devi, because she had come wanting to see me and I was sleeping and you stopped her. So she got really upset. And so to pacify his wife, Krishna has arranged this, where he arranged for the 2 sages to be, the 2 doorkeepers to be cursed. This arrangement of the Lord for what seems to be difficulty for his devotees, even after he tells his devotees a little later, don't worry, you will quickly come back to me, as he's saying here in this verse, and you'll still be connected with me. Still, the 2 sages, the 2 doorkeepers were very sad to ultimately go to the material world as the various demons. They were feeling this sense of pain. And it's the start, this whole episode is the start of multi-generational fantastic devotees that also, by the Lord's arrangement, go through so much difficulty. Think about it. Jai and Vijay, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Hiranyakashipu's first out of 4 sons is Prahalad, and the kinds of difficulties Prahalad goes through, arranged by Hiranyakashipu, who was sent by Krishna to the material world to become Hiranyakashipu, who's none other than Jai and Vijay. So Prahlad's suffering was instrumented ultimately by Krishna. And then he comes down as Narasimhadev to save him. Next, Bali Maharaj, the grandson of Prahlad. So we see Jai and Vijay's son is Prahlad, Prahlad's grandson is Bali, and Prahlad and Bali are both Mahajans, and Bali too. He almost dies. In fact, he dies, and then Shukracharya brings him back to life in the 6th canto. And Bali, in the 8th canto, Bali goes through some really, what some people found as terrible circumstance. He was bound up by the Lord. He lost everything. Multi-generations of devotees, pure devotees, like really elevated devotees, are put into circumstances that we would go, oh my goodness, that's so painful, that's so hard, that's challenging. This is what Prabhupada sometimes say is the gift of the Lord. The challenges we go through ultimately are gifts of the Lord. Initially, maybe very hard, maybe depressing, very tough. The next stage is accepting, and the next stage is gratitude. To see those challenges in life is Krishna's allowing me to learn something. Krishna is allowing me to grow. Krishna is doing an operation on me. Krishna is taking out stuff that if I didn't go through the challenge, it would still be there. Just like the fire of ordeal. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur uses this phrase, fire of ordeal. The fire of ordeal burns. But just as fire that burns away the impurities in gold, the fire of ordeal can burn away our impurities through the circumstances we experience in life. And being open to that mindset and asking us this question is two questions when we're dealing with challenges. A, what's Krishna trying to teach me through this? What is Krishna trying to teach me through this? And B, how can I be of service? What kind of instrument am I being called upon to act as in this circumstance? And the answers may not come immediately, and it can be very confusing and bewildering, and it's natural to be in that state of mind. But what is Krishna trying to teach me through this? I'm studying a section in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam where Markandeya Rishi, by the way, his story is so fascinating. Markandeya Rishi, who becomes a very powerful sage, later, such a powerful sage, later even Lord Shiva and Uma come to visit him and want to spend time with him. But before that, Narayan comes to visit him in his ashram. And Markandeya Rishi glorifies the Lord, and Narayan offers him a benediction. Take anything you like. And he says, I don't need anything. The fact that you even came here is so beautiful, but I still have a little bit of a curiosity. And my curiosity is, what does your illusory energy look like? What is your Maya energy? I want to experience it. Oh my goodness. Narayan smiled ruefully, smiled with a little bit of sadness, is how it's described, ruefully, because he prefer his devotees not experience material energy. Like Prabhupada would say to his disciples, don't flirt with Maya. And so then Markandeya Rishi experienced this years, millions of years of torture and turmoil in the waters of devastation. And he learned from it. Anyway, the story goes on. But point is that he learned from that very challenging and long drawn out situation, but for a long time it was confusing. It was not clear. What is the lesson in it for me? So we might in our lives experience these kind of things, long, prolonged challenges that likely is orchestrated by the Lord. If we're devotees and we're chanting, the Lord gives us attention. It's not karma anymore. For those who truly and genuinely from the heart are looking for a connection with Krishna, Krishna personally takes attention in our lives. And like in Jai and Vijay's case, in Prahlad's case, in Bali Maharaj's case, in this multi-generational story that we hear through the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna personally enters into their lives to create those situations. And then, like in Prahlad's case, as he was dropping from the cliff, Krishna came at the last moment and saved him. And so in each of our lives, it may seem like we're going through unending trouble. But what's the service for me and what can I learn? And it may not come immediately. I guess I'll end with one last point here. In the verse, I was explaining samrambha sambhritta samadhi anubhadda yoga, that Krishna's telling these two, the four sages and the two doorkeepers, you will be firmly bound in yoga with me through intensified anger and in meditation of that anger. So I'm going to share my screen here. And we are going to go to the 7th canto text, chapter 1, text 30. Kamadveshad bhayat snehad yatha bhakteshvara manaha avesha tad agham hitva bhavas tad gatim gataha. Translation: many persons have attained liberation simply by thinking of Krishna. That's the point, thinking of Krishna, with great attention and giving up sinful activities. This great attention may be due to lusty desires, inimical feelings, fear, affection or devotional service. So it's not always devotional service by which one can fully concentrate the mind on Krishna. I shall now explain how one receives Krishna's mercy simply by concentrating one's mind on him. The point being, whether it's with lusty desires, hatred, fear, affection, or devotional service, any of these ways, and even more, as long as we're not ignoring Krishna, the life of ignorance, the life of the material world is ignorance, which means ignoring Krishna. As long as we don't ignore Krishna, we pay attention to him in some way, like Shishupal just couldn't get his mind off of Krishna with such hatred. Of course, that's not the best, but don't ignore Krishna. That's the message from the Bhagavatam. Pay some attention. We want material benefit. We want love. We want, get in touch with what we really need. We want security. We don't want to be fearful. Get in touch with that which is driving our emotional states. Take that emotional energy and direct it to Krishna. It's like the compass of our emotional life should be directed to Krishna. And to take that emotional energy into our chanting. I'm really fearful. Fine. I'm feeling very anxious about something or the other. Fine. I want connection. I want relationship with another person. I'm feeling this need for intimacy. Fine. Take that emotional energy, which is what emotion is. Emotion is energy in motion. Take that emotional energy and fully direct it to Krishna. That's the message of the Bhagavatam. Just don't ignore Krishna. So Krishna is telling these two gatekeepers that even though you will be in the material world, and even though you'll be super angry at me, you will be anubaddha yoga, fully tied up, firmly tied in yoga with me. This is called the yoga of anger, the yoga of intense anger. Hare Krishna. Okay, I'll end there and see if there are any thoughts, comments, reflections. Anyone would like to share their realizations from this section? Shadika, you raised your hand.
In the beginning, you were talking about the ambivalence with which the Lord speaks. And the Kumaras can't tell, and Jay and Vijay can't tell, like, whose favor he's talking in.
Yeah.
So, this area of communication is of great interest to us. So I'm wondering if we can hone down on this. Often what happens in our interactions when we speak with ambivalence and try not to favor one party or the other, it's the motivation is to save ourselves from the discomfort of being authentic and speaking our authentic truth. Mm-hmm. Because we don't know how to balance care and authenticity. So sometimes we can be really authentic and compromise on care and hurt sensitivities, or we can just come out and or we think that being caring is to not, or we don't have the skills to navigate our authentic truth with care. So, but in the Lord's case, of course, none of this is true. The Lord is, completely transcendental to all of this. What is his motivation in speaking with ambivalence?
Is being perceived as ambivalence. I don't know that he is necessarily speaking with ambivalence. But Krishna is also he has a sense of humor. Krishna does have a sense of humor. We see it in his exchanges with Rukmini. He's speaking with ambivalence with Rukmini. Does he love her or does he not love her? Right? And she's confused initially. And the Bhagavatam says she gets really confused. And then she gets angry with him. And then, like a husband would, he starts to pacify. He says, I'm just kidding. So Krishna could have, who knows the mind of Krishna? Like Jagannath Prabhu was quoting from Chaitanya Charitamrita yesterday. that one cannot even understand a Vaishnava, as Chaitanya Charitamrita says. One cannot even understand an elevated Vaishnava, what to speak of Krishna. So to enter into the mind of Krishna is very, very difficult. But one thing we can understand at least, that Krishna is, you know, he may want to be ambivalent for certain reasons, to teach someone something, but he may also not want to, and is being perceived that way by the four Kumaras. My understanding of that section where he's glorifying brahmanas and devotees, he's actually being on both of their side. Our material mindset wants to generally try to see someone being one side or the other. And it's very difficult to put that two together, that can someone really be on the side of two different parties at odds with one another? Can someone actually do that? Be on both of their sides, be affectionate to both sides. Material mindset struggles with that one. You have to be on one person's side or not. Either you're completely neutral or you're on one person's side, but you can be on both people's side. But what Krishna, my understanding of this section is, Krishna was on both of their sides. He was on his doorkeeper's side and he was on the four sages' side. Samaham sarvabhuteshu name deveshu priya. And the quality of someone, this is a meditation for me, in the 12th chapter of the Gita, one of the qualities that make a devotee very dear to Krishna, Krishna says, anapeksha. Apeksha means to take a side. Anapeksha. Anapeksha, one who doesn't take sides, is a quality of a devotee that Krishna truly appreciates. Anyway, I don't know that I addressed your question necessarily, but those are some reflections on that.
Yes, that addresses it. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other comment or thought? Reflection?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhu. In general, I would have some rebelling questions for these kind of sections. But thanks to Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's sessions last weekend, it was making so much more sense as I was looking through that lens, and your beautiful explanations coming from your deep realizations of Krishna's fairness. That is one of my struggles. So I was able to appreciate that aspect so much in today's class. Thank you. Just to extend this point that Shri Radhika Mataji is bringing here, I get a little uncomfortable in some of the sections where Krishna or his very dear devotees on very highly elevated stages. For example, Jagadananda Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Radharani and her side of gopis with Krishna. It seems it's altogether at a different level. And I was wondering, the communication, the speech or intentions we are trying to cultivate as devotees, is that only as long as we don't, we are not on the level of prema, and once it's there, it's totally controlled and orchestrated by Krishna, and they may not have these, oh, why did they say this, or why they talk like this, all that stuff. The reason I'm bringing up, because when some very senior devotees,
Because I tease you a lot. That's why you're bringing it up. You're trying to correct me.
I'm just expressing when some very senior devotees speak. Obviously, we may not understand what level of bhakti they are, but I get a little disturbed. Hey, they're supposed to speak empathically. They're supposed to be like this, being such seniors, not only in terms of their number of years, but we can see other aspects of their devotional service. But the speech, or at least the perceivable communication, seems like it's not so empathic or so, the quote unquote Vaishnava, like according to my perception. So I just wanted to ask you, can we apply that to them and say their speech and communication may be at a different level, and for me to not get disturbed by the external aspects of their communication?
Nice question. So, like the example of Jagadananda Prabhu, was he speaking empathically to Mahaprabhu? Absolutely not. He would chastise, or Damodar Pandit would chastise Mahaprabhu. They were, in one sense, his juniors and subordinate to him, yet they would speak with such uh, such force and mood of chastisement. Similarly, Srimati Radharani and so forth. That's very high level, absolutely in the pure stages of relationships. Whether your question is now in our stage, or when we observe those who may not be at our stage, much maybe more developed than us, and we see similar kind of expressions like what maybe Jagadananda Prabhu might say to Mahaprabhu, how do we take that? Right? If I captured your question, if that's your question.
Yes, Prabhu, yeah.
The barometer, yeah.
I'm sorry, just wanted to add one thing, because if we don't understand as some of the new immature, it may actually put off the other devotees. So that was also another aspect. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so the barometer of advancement is not whether one speaks with refined speech. Like if you think of Gaur Das Babaji and how he spoke to people, his barometer of advancement was the depth of shelter he took in Krishna. That is the barometer of advancement. What helps us along the path and have wholesome relationships, so it ultimately deepens our bhakti, maybe tools like empathic communication, etc., etc. But the empathic communication is not in itself the goal. The goal of life, that clarity of the goal of life as we move along the bhakti path, needs to become more and more refined. And that goal of life is exactly that, bhakti, is shelter in God, this intimate relationship with Krishna. That's the goal of life, is to please Krishna, is to be in that loving relationship with Krishna. And how it looks like as we move along in life, in our relationship with Krishna or in our relationship with others, can take a variety of collage. It's like this collage of various shades of relationships and interactions and so forth. So it's hard to judge necessarily. It could be someone who's practicing it for a very long time, may have very refined speech but not very deep bhakti. It may be someone who's practicing for a very long time, may have very deep bhakti but not refined speech. And it may be they have both. So it's hard to say ultimately. But there are certain symptoms, and we see these symptoms. So the symptoms of the devotee of who's making advancement is given in the Gita. And we take those as a barometers to know who's advanced and who's not advanced. The primary symptom is Krishna Eka Sharana, or Ananya Bhakti, that steady, unfaltering devotion to serving Krishna, that determination, unfaltering determination to serve Krishna. That's the symptom of bhakti. That ahaituki apratiyata, even if challenges come, they still will serve Krishna. They don't run away. That's a symptom of an advanced soul, someone who was sheltered in Krishna, right? And then these other qualities, such as being kind, maybe through refined speech, being tolerant, and all these other things come from that core. Being don't eating too much, mita book, etc. So those are the symptoms we look at, not necessarily whether It's just refined speech. Is that the barometer of an advanced devotee? No. We try to see the ahaituki apratihata, or the unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service. That's the real measure of an advanced soul. And that's for someone who may be looking at, let's say, unrefined speech and going, is that really a spiritual person? Well, we try to help another person who may be seeing with that vision, try to look at the deeper aspect, their complete dedication to God. Because that dedication will make you cry. The refined speech will just make you comfortable. When I say make you cry, it means it touches your heart. That's what I mean. Okay? All right. That's the best I can do for now.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yeah, very helpful.
All right. Final comment. We're at 8:24 a.m. Anyone want to share anything else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. This is Anandini Priya. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Srila
Hare
Gurudev.
Krishna. Mine as
Hare
well.
Krishna Prabhu. Sorry, I joined late when the question answer sessions were going on, comment section. And I would like to expand on Amrita Kili Mataji's comment that, yeah, that's a very good point, that real parameter is shelter of Krishna. But I think on the practical level, that also needs to be addressed, like the way the things are communicated, and if it is causing disturbance with other devotees. And so, means, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, when you're living in a society or community, certainly there may be a need to give feedback to someone who may be saying things that disturbs another, for sure. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
How do we
Because
give feedback? That's the other question, right? That's the tough
yeah,
one. I often find, especially people who grew up in communal societies such as India, people who grew up in some communal societies and are largely driven by, there's a new book that says, what will people think? There's, if for communal societies, it's very hard to give feedback to one another because what will happen to the relationship? And we get caught up in that when unable to effectively then give feedback but sometimes it's needed to give feedback to someone who may be speaking in ways and doing things that tramples on others and makes them feel really disappointed, dejected, and discouraged, right? So
yes.
the need to give feedback is certainly there, but how to do that, I have found, is a challenge and needs training, and it's a lacking. It's an area for growth, certainly for our communities in general.
Yes, Prabhu, and it also depends how much other person wants to take it also, the feedback, and how they take it.
Therefore, having the right relationship is very important to start off with, making sure we have a trusting relationship where then medicine can be received with trust as opposed to mistrust or with defensiveness, etc.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate your time this morning, and may we be in intense concentration of Krishna, whether it be in anger, lust, greed, fear, whatever. That's Krishna's message today. Hare Krishna. Take care. Hare Bol. My obeisances.